Welcome back, Bulls Nation, to another episode of Nothing But Bull. I'm your host, Derek, and today we have a very special guest, the Chicago Bulls radio play-by-play announcer, the legendary Chuck Swirsky. Chuck, how's it going?
Derek, I'm feeling great. I'm pumped up. Schedule probably will be released, I would think, in a couple of weeks. And then we can rock and roll and get into the season.
Right. And of course, I am joined by Justin. Justin, how's it going?
It's another day in paradise here at work. So ready to get started with Chuck.
And Melissa, how's it going?
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Very excited to have Chuck on. So thank you again for joining us. We're so excited and honored.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's an honor to be with you. And Justin, you're wearing Bulls red. You got Melissa with the hat. And of course, Derek. Hey, it's all good. This is one big family here.
That's right.
Yes, definitely a big Bulls family. And want to actually start this off with some questions that other Bulls fans wanted to ask you.
Fire away. I'm all set. I'm an open book, Derek.
Okay. All right. Our first questions are from Terry. He wants to know about your days at Super CFL in 1979.
Well, we're going way back. I was only 6 years old at the time. That's a joke. But it was my first job in Chicago. I had arrived from Columbus, Ohio. And, I was overmatched. I was overwhelmed. I was going into work every day, scared to death because I didn't know whether or not I belonged. But through my faith in God, and also through the fact that, if you give it your best shot, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask of yourself. And so little by little, things worked out to the point where I established myself. But I would say this to all young people and to people in general: you got to persevere. Life is not a straight line. You're going to have some really, really good moments, high moments. You're going to have some challenges where you feel that you're trapped. But the best thing you can do is block out the noise, focus, and do the best you can, and develop a skill set and come to work with a great attitude and enthusiasm and selflessness.
It's a great answer, not just his question, but just great advice on life in general.
Yeah, very inspiring, and not just for young people as well. People our age, we're all on here much older than what we look. A lot of my students think that, or under the impression that I'm in my 60s because I can mess around with them like that. But that is no truer words have ever been spoken. It takes a lot of perseverance to continue with whatever endeavor that you're on. Especially getting into the business that you're in, Chuck, is very competitive. So
yeah,
we
Justin, I'll share a story with you. And in fact, actually, I'm writing a book about my career, and it's based on a lot of things that happened along the way. And hopefully it'll inspire others because I've walked in a lot of different shoes for different people, so to speak. I know exactly at times what they're going through when they're knocking on 100 doors and it's no, 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 no. And yet you allow no to become a yes by saying, okay, what do I need to do to get better? And you have to take constructive criticism. But my internship, when I was interning, the news director, I went to him one day. I was 20 years old. And I said, listen to my tape. And I'm a big boy. I can take criticism, even to this day, whether it's about my broadcast. Hey, I bring it. You know what? If it's done in a sincere, constructive manner, I'm open. If it's somebody on Twitter or somebody on social media and they're just ripping away for the sake of ripping away and hiding behind a drape, so to speak, because they can put anything out there, I'm not so sure about that. But when I was doing my internship, I presented my work to the news director, and I expected, criticism. Like I said, I get it. But he came back to me and said, you know what? I think you need to go into another line of work. I don't see this happening for you. And I was crushed, absolutely crushed. I left his office, and I'm telling you the truth. I left the office and went downstairs, went outside. There was a little alley near where the radio station was, where I was doing my internship at NBC Radio in Cleveland. And like I wept. And then I composed myself, went to work for the rest of the day. I got home, and I'm not from Cleveland, but my grandparents lived outside of Cleveland. I stayed with them during the summer while I was doing this internship. And my grandmother, who was like old school from Italy, like really old school, and she sat me down and said, listen, I'm going to give you until the rest of the day to get over this. And tomorrow morning, you're going back into work. And one day you're going to prove to him that you belonged. So here's how God works. This is honest to God's true story. The same guy who told me I would never make it. Okay. So now I'm doing play-by-play for the Raptors on television. And I was doing freelance work for WABC in New York, the #1 station in New York. And I was doing freelance work because our news director of WABC happened to be my boss when I was doing the University of Michigan at WJR. He had lost his sports guy at WABC in New York and needed just me to fill in for like a month until they hired someone. So I would go to different radio stations when we were on the road. I would show up at a radio station in Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee, wherever, when we were on the road with the Raptors, I had to get the sportscast on the air. And they would put me in a little studio and I would write the script, and it was focused on New York teams. So they got, of all stations, it's the same station that I did my internship with like 30 years before. And here I am arriving, and guess who's still at the station? That news director. And I walk in, and he looks at me and says, what are you doing here? I said, well, you know what? I'm doing freelance work for WABC in New York. I'm the TV play-by-play announcer for the Toronto Raptors. Good to see you. And I didn't pound the rock. I'm not like that. I'm not vindictive. But I'll tell you what, that story alone, the fact that I took a no to be a yes, and I think about that story all the time because I still get rejected in certain elements of my career. But again, you know what? You just got to get better. And that is a true story I just shared with you.
That's an amazing story. So you didn't have that Good Will Hunting moment where you were like, you held up the piece of paper and asked them, do you like apples?
Yeah.
And you said, how do you like them apples? That wasn't.
Well, here's the thing. We're all human beings. And, whether it's Melissa having a good day, bad day, Derek having a good day, bad day, Justin, we all have them. So when I have a bad day, do I vent? Yes. Sometimes I vent to God and just say, hey, what's going on? But his plan's much bigger than mine, and his plan is perfect. And so that's one element. The other element is this. We are always not going to get what we want. There are certain things, for example, early in my career, I wanted to be the play-by-play announcer for the Seattle Supersonics. And I wanted to work back home. That's my home. And I did another internship in Seattle, and it looked like that they were going to make me a full-time sportscaster in Seattle. And I was thrilled. And at the last second, it did not happen because of a transitional period of time with radio rights of the Sonics being moved from one station to another. And it didn't work out for a budgetary reason, and I didn't get the job. and I was crushed. I was 22 years old. And, you know, looking back on it now, okay, I get it. And so then, as it turns out, I actually was offered, I wasn't offered the job, but they told me that if you come to Seattle to interview for the job, chances are pretty good that I'm going to get the job. But they were on their way to Oklahoma City, and I didn't want to uproot my family from Toronto to Seattle for 1 year and then all of a sudden say, okay, we're moving to Oklahoma City. It wouldn't be fair to my children who were young at the time. But again, you know what? It's hard to not carry anger. It's hard not to carry disappointment in your heart, but you got to release it because it really doesn't do any good. It really doesn't.
Yeah, that's a great message. We have these conversations quite often, actually. So it's all about being able to just go with the flow, lead with faith.
Yes,
as you
you
said,
take the high road.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, and it's hard. I get it. There are times when I just, you know, like, oh my gosh, but you got to take the high road always.
Yeah. Just being resilient. If it's one door that closes on you, you always know that there's going to be another one open.
Absolutely.
But being able to pivot. So that's something I think we all learn through experience and through age
and
maturity, right? That it's taking rejection in stride and being able to pivot is going to bring you much more peace and success, actually, like knowing that we can't control every outcome. So that's like a really great story. Appreciate that.
Well, you know what, Melissa, and let me just say this to an add-on, then we can move on, Derek, is that it's okay to have a sit down with your supervisor and say, okay, like, let's just be transparent about things. Let's get everything on the table and let's be truthful. Let's be honest. Let's, you know, just have a clear passage in my journey so we can understand each other better. It's called communication.
Right.
And not only in work, but in life. I mean, as long as you're honest with yourself and you're sincere and your intentions are pure, then, I mean, like, okay, that's a really good conversation. But if you've got an agenda going in and you've got a chip on your shoulder, or like, okay, somebody got a job over you, so now I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to have an attitude towards the guy who got the job I wanted, you know, that to me is horrible because it doesn't really solve anything. In fact, it creates more of a mushroom of discontent and acrimony. And I don't want that.
It's very powerful. As you said, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't solve anything at all. It's just you're just carrying the weight of all that negative energy, and that's going to go into everything else you do. So
absolutely,
great message.
Absolutely, very great message. I gotta live life with positivity.
Yep, and you know what, my goal. I don't do it every day, but I try and share a message with a quote on Twitter every day. And we're recording this on Monday, and I used a Michael Jordan quote. And it's really important that people understand that everyone has a skill set. There's always somebody better than you. And I get that. There are a lot of people better than me. And there are a lot of people who have an incredible amount of talent. But one thing that I can control, other than my skill set and getting better, but I can control my attitude and I control my heart. And I control my heart for others. And that when I go into work, my sole focus is what can I do today to assist and help others? And if that means mentoring, great. If that means, hey, Chuck, you know what? I'm walking down the hall. You know, I don't have enough hands. Can you take this box to room 102? Absolutely. Little things like that. You know, they always say that, you know, when people talk about community, well, I talk about your home on the block, and your home sits next to another home, and that home sits next to another house and a house, and you want that house to be a home. There's a difference between a house and a home. Well, I want to create a home because a home should be a safe place. A home should be a harbinger of love and peace and joy. And so when I go into work, hey, listen, you know what? I'm doing something I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to broadcast NBA basketball. I'm the broadcaster for the Chicago Bulls. I mean, one of the iconic brands globally. So to me, I never have a bad day. And do I have a bad day? Yes. But in the big picture, you know what? Hey, you can't control yesterday. It's gone. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. Let's worry about today.
And I love those tweets you put out all the time, those positive tweets. Like, I'm sure everybody can agree, like you're always putting out positive, inspiring messages. And we need more of that. Life can get pretty challenging as it is. And It's not about changing your perspective on things, and more so than the actual situation. So
absolutely. Listen, here's my take on a lot of things. When people say, especially in our society, people say, well, I'm colorblind to everything that, I love all people, I'm colorblind. Well, you know what? I take the opposite approach. I want to see color. I want to embrace the backgrounds and the culture of people because I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to be a better person to accept. And so in our society today, I think it's really important that we listen. We don't do enough listening, we all talk. And, if I disagree with you, then you're a horrible person. And if you disagree with me, I'm a horrible. We may not agree on things, but we also need to take a step back, listen, and say, okay, we're not on the same page with this, but I respect your opinion as long as it's not hurtful and as long as it doesn't cross that line to a place that, we shouldn't go as a society. But whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent, whether you're Catholic, Jewish, Islam, or no religion, whether you're gay, whether you're bi, whether you're heterosexual, let's just accept for who we are as human beings, because at the end of the day, we all have a heart. And I'm going to share this one thing with you. Let's say, Derek, you're on the corner street and you're standing across the light. And let's say, Derek, you're a doctor, okay? And the person next to you all of a sudden goes into a seizure or collapses. Now, you're a doctor, right? You are a doctor and can help that person in a moment of need, immediate need. So do you think at that point, that person who's suffering now, maybe on the verge of death, really cares what color you are, what religion you are, what nationality, what anything? They don't care at that moment. What they care about is, hey, I need help. And you happen to be there to help them, and vice versa. And so I'm thinking, why can't we live this world where, you know what? I accept who you are. I embrace who you are. And so now it comes time for you to say, hey, I need help with my project at school. Or, I want to really learn how to get better in this certain field. Why are we judging on our color of skin or our religion or our sexuality? We should say, hey, great, let's do it. What can I do to help? Hey, let's go over my tape. Let's go over my written script. What should I be doing that I'm not doing? Or do you think this works? Or do I need to change the pace and flow of my play-by-play? And so that's why we're mosaic. We're pieces, and we all blend in. This is probably not the type of podcast you were expecting. So I apologize. We can get back to sports.
No,
That's great. Everybody needs a positive message. Sometimes people, you never know what they're going through, and this will probably help a lot of people that will hear this. So that was great. It goes beyond sports.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. But sports is a great vehicle because, like, especially when you win, like when the teams that I've called, when you're winning, it's awesome. I mean, because the chemistry is obviously there. And, I've seen some teams where the chemistry on winning ball clubs isn't there. Sometimes, like in baseball, for example, you got 25 people, and that's a huge roster. And in baseball, basically, if you're going up there to hit the ball and you go 0 for 4, but three other guys get 3 hits, they're in their own little island. If you go 0 for 4, you're probably going out to left field thinking about your last at bat and thinking, gosh, I got squeezed at the plate and the umpire really, or I can't believe I swung at a breaking ball when I was expecting a fastball. He takes it out to left field. The thing I love about basketball is you need 5 people working in unison to like pull together and fight together. And then you got a bench that when something crazy happens, they stand up and they are into it and they want to see you succeed. And I love that. It's one of my favorite things in basketball. I love the camaraderie and the teamwork.
And there does seem to be a lot of that. I mean, I think the Bulls have done a good job of establishing that within their culture. But just watching some of the things like we learned with DeMar taking Patrick Williams over to the side, inviting him over to those workouts so that he can help him with his game and help him with his growth. How important is it for the team to have those veterans who are taking on those leadership aspects that you talked about?
Well, that's a great question, Justin. So let me just say this. As a veteran player, you have, to me, everyone is wired differently. Some veteran players are just saying, hey, I'm just trying to hang on for dear life, trying to squeeze another year or two. Some veteran players, their personality is like, hey, I'll help people, but I'm kind of into my own thing. And then you have veteran players like a DeMar DeRozan, who takes young players, whether in Toronto with Fred VanVleet or in Chicago now with Ayo Dosunmu and with Patrick Williams and others, Kobe White, whatever. His door is always open. His basketball DNA in his heart, his soul is, hey, I want to help young people just like somebody helped me when I first came into the NBA. And it's a ripple effect, and it's a circle of life. And DeMar DeRozan gets it. And I think his presence, long after he's gone, will be felt with this Bulls organization for years, because here's what happens. The seed has been planted, and that seed has been planted now in the heart and soul of Ayo or Patrick Williams. And some of the things that DeMar is instilling in them will go into saying one day, okay, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, others are going to bring along a player now in a couple of years and say, hey, this is a workout I went through with DeMar in LA. And maybe it's a ball handling skill drill. Maybe it's footwork, whatever the case may be. As an example, they're going to pass that down one layer, one layer, one layer, one layer. And to me, it's the persona of DeMar, who's been very open about helping others because he needed help himself in the area of mental wellness. And he, along with Kevin Love, were 2 of the first NBA players who said, hey, you know what? I get it. I've got generational wealth and I'm an all-star player, but it's more than that. Don't look at me as just a jersey number. Look at me as a human being, because I struggle. There are a lot of people who struggle. And if I come forward and share the fact that, yeah, you know what, the wrapping paper is coming off, and I'm a human being, and inside of me is somebody who's struggling, who has struggled, continues to seek help and care and concern, I think was so beneficial to so many people, especially other players in the NBA who are afraid to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm struggling. I'm dealing with some things," because we look at players like they're invincible. You know, they're healthy and they're young and they're strong and they're zillionaires and they've got all this, all the trappings of professional sports with the fame coming their way. And it's okay to admit, you know what, I got to get some help. And I think it was so beneficial for millions of people to see these players come out, because at the end of the day, you know what, we're human beings. And so anyway, that's my view on DeMar.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen like a player be so embraced by the fan base so soon. I mean, he's only been here 1 year, but you can tell that people in Chicago and Bulls fans all over, they love DeMar DeRozan. And it's not just because of his play on the court, but as you said, he's talked about mental wellness and he's always there to help. And he just seems like this genuine guy who cares about people. And that's what, people need to look up to people like that, where you know that they care. So you see that it's okay for you to care for people. And like you said, that seed that gets planted and it just keeps growing and growing, and it can go all over the world and
Absolutely.
not just fan base.
So, because you know what, I mean, as far as the way I was raised by my mom and dad, is that we're here really on earth to serve others. And I mean, that's what I try to do in my own little way in my world. And everyone has their own thing. And so I'm not saying there's one right element to lead. So everyone can lead differently. You know, some people are outgoing, some people are quiet and reserved. They can still lead in their own way by example. But, you know, like if your goal is to serve others, you're really serving yourself, because it's about who you are and your heart. And I mean, we've all made mistakes. We're going to continue making mistakes. But at the end of the day, if the realization of your world is, okay, I'm here to help people like DeMar with young players, you know, and we're only looking at one side of DeMar with players. DeMar probably does this with I know he does it with his family. He loves his family. And he probably does it with his friends or people he grew up with in Compton, California. And so I think it's been fabulous.
Okay. I want to get back to Terry's other question.
Sure.
He wants to know about your days as a play-by-play man for DePaul Hoops on the radio when the Blue Demons may have been more popular than the Bulls.
Yes, they were. I did DePaul for 14 years. And I loved that era of basketball with Ray Meyer, then transitioning to his son, Joey Meyer, from the late 70s to, let's say, mid 90s, and where it was Mark Aguirre, Terry Cummings, Dallas Comegys, Stanley Brundy, Rod Strickland, Kevin Edwards, Terrence Green. I mean, we could go right down over and over and over and over. It was a great period for DePaul basketball. And, I love Coach Ray so much. People saw Coach as kind of a grandfather figure because he was so genuine. And I saw a different side of Coach away from basketball. How much he loved his family, but he would tell great stories. He was an unbelievable, incredible storyteller. And so we would, be sitting down at a coffee shop, and all of a sudden he'd bring up a story of coaching in the 1950s, or he would be telling a story about Chicago, the city of Chicago, like in the late 60s. And like I would just listen. And yet at the end of the day, he was a really good coach. And Jim Molinari, one of his assistants, along with his son, Joey, at the time, the two assistants, put together an incredible run of players coming to Chicago to play for DePaul.
Another question. Okay. DeMarco asks, are the Bulls playing with fire by betting on the potential of Patrick Williams?
Well, a lot's been said about Patrick Williams, and I think he's under the microscope. And I get it. He's the 4th overall pick. We're not talking about the 24th pick. We're not talking about the 14th pick. We're talking about the 4th overall pick. And we've seen glimpses of what Patrick can do. First and foremost, and this is the case really for any NBA player, but especially a young player drafted high, he's got to stay healthy. Because the only way we can really evaluate any talent, especially coming out of college, is can they stay healthy? Are they available to play? Okay. And if they're available to play and they're healthy, then what type of player are we looking at? And we've seen snippets here and there, but the only way we're going to be able to judge Patrick Williams is to see him play an extended volume of games. And so I understand the frustration of the fans, and I understand that they really want to see who this player is in terms of his, I'm not concerned about his makeup. The kid wants to win. He is a competitor. I love him. I love the guy and everything about him. And now, like all fans, I want to see him on the floor, and I want to see him put together months of games. And that's not to say I'm expecting him to play 82 games. Those days probably are kind of over in the NBA. Well, they are over in the NBA. But I'd like to see him play 75 games and see what we've got here. Because I think if he can play 70 to 77 games, 70, 75 games, then I think then we can take a step back and say, okay, you know what? We got this. So that's my view on Patrick.
I'm glad you brought that out with him wanting to win, because I think what gets lost in a lot of the talk about Patrick Williams is that when he came in, he took on the role that the Bulls wanted him to play. Like when they put him out on the floor, and he was often defending the best player on the court at that time, which is not easy for a rookie who also didn't start when he was in college. But I think that people are losing sight of his work ethic and like just his growth that he's shown, even with snippets, because I know you talked about like we've only seen him in like limited amounts of action. But I think that a lot of people are losing sight of that fact that this is a kid that is willing to buy in, to do whatever it takes to not only just get on the court, but be a positive factor on the court.
Yes, I agree. And there's no question. I mean, he has bought in. And I mean, they saw enough of him at Florida State for one season with the Seminoles to say, we like his upside. His ceiling is something that we want to measure as the years go by because we think it's very high. So I would encourage Bulls fans to be patient. And I know patience isn't really a word in the NBA dictionary. We don't allow that to happen. We want instant success. And people like to compare players like after 2 games and so that's the next. Well, let's just take our time and let Patrick Williams be Patrick Williams and nobody else. And let's see, hopefully he'll come into camp healthy and then have a great run.
Let's take another question. Okay, Robert Nicholson wants to know, what is it about Chicago sports fans that make them unique compared to other fan bases?
Great question. Well, I mean, if, for example, if you ask Boston fans, New York, Philly, Detroit, they will tell you, we've got the best fan base in the world. Well, let me tell you what separates Chicago from some great cities and great sports fan base and venues. Chicago is, Carl Sandburg said Chicago is a city of broad shoulders. And we've carried a lot in this city throughout the decades of football, basketball, baseball, hockey, major college sports. And the fans can't get enough of it. I mean, one thing is there is no such thing as an off season anymore. Here we are talking Bulls ball in mid-August, okay? We can talk Bears football on May the 2nd. We can talk Cubs and White Sox, on December the 12th. I mean, it's great what this city is all about. And one thing is, all you have to do is go to a game at the United Center or go to Soldier Field or go to, what's going on at Guarantee or Wrigley Field, and you'll see the fans they eat it, breathe it, live it. And that's what I love about Chicago. And that's what I love about the fan base here. I think it's a beautiful thing to see. And even when you go to a Cubs Marlins game at Wrigley Field and see the Cubs fans, watching a team that 20 games or so under 500, and some of that is the charm of Wrigley Field, I get it. But some of it is saying, hey, I still believe in the Cubs. And I still believe that this quote unquote rebuild, that we're not supposed to say it's a rebuild, but it is. But, we believe in this ball club and the direction this front office and manager will take us.
I know the Bulls had that going over the fan base where we were rebuilding for a couple of years and still had people showing up to the United Center.
The post-Jordan era was not pretty. Let's just leave it at that. And yet, thank God for Derrick Rose, huh?
Yes. Speaking of the Jordan years, you were calling Chicago sports on the radio during the championship run.
Yes.
Do you have like any Jordan moments that stand out to you?
Well, yeah. You know what, Derek? I'll share a Jordan moment. I mean, everyone knows I covered when I was at WGM Radio. I covered the first 3 championships, and then I left to go to the University of Michigan and do the Wolverines. I was not here in 96, 7, or 8. I was at Michigan, but in 91, 92, 93, I covered the NBA run for the Bulls. The thing I remember, other than everyone knows on the floor, the greatness of the Bulls, and they were great. And I mean, it was unbelievable to see Jordan every night. I'll share a story with you about Jordan. I'll never forget this. And it was even before the 91 run. So this is probably about his 3rd or 4th year in the league. And he has established himself now as the player in the league. The Bulls had not won championships. They were getting beat in the playoffs. So it's not like they had reached that level where they are there yet. But Jordan was Jordan. And so at the old Chicago Stadium, it's not like they would pull Jordan out to a press conference where it was a large room. That came later. Jordan would go in, take a shower, get dressed, and then meet with reporters in his locker room area. And it was thick, it was deep, it was like row after row. So he always wore a suit, okay? You never see Michael Jordan in a jumpsuit, the Jumpman. There wasn't even a Jumpman back then, but you never saw him with Nike. It was always a suit and a tie. So the first layer, they ask questions. Second ring comes in, they ask questions. Third ring. So he's with reporters for a good 20 plus minutes a night. So I'm watching from afar, and I already got my 20-second soundbite, I'm holding the microphone the whole bit. And there was a young person who was doing a class project and got a Bulls media credential. And he came in and he was nervous. And he's got a notepad with a pen, and he approached Jordan. And his left hand holding the pad was shaking. He was so nervous. We're probably talking about a 16, 17-year-old young man. And he's got the pen to take notes. And he introduced himself. Jordan was fabulous to him. And it would have been so easy for athletes. And I've seen, unfortunately, my share of athletes who have basically said, hey, you know what? Nice meeting you, boom, out the door. Jordan stayed right with them. And I think the compassion and the empathy that Jordan showed, saying to himself, okay, like, he's got to, he introduced himself, told me what was going on. And so I need to show respect. So to me, that was a great life lesson, that no matter, and again, this is something I learned as a kid, but it was reinforced that particular night, no matter the title of an individual or the position they hold, you still treat the people the same way, whether they're the president and CEO of the Chicago Bulls or an intern that gets his or her first day with the organization. To me, that's how I roll. I mean, I love Jerry Reinsdorf. I love Michael Reinsdorf. I love everyone in the organization, but there is no dichotomy between the way I treat the owner of the Chicago Bulls and the intern. And that is a fact.
That is awesome. That this podcast has been full of life lessons today, and that's just great. I think we have one more question. Tori asks, have you ever been to Australia?
Have I ever been to Australia? No, but I would love to go. Seriously, I'd love to go to Australia. Basketball in Australia is really, really booming, and it's getting big. Their league is fabulous. And we have a number of Australian players, as you know, in the NBA. And Luke Longley, of course, of the Bulls, played in Australia. But no, I have never been there. That is definitely on my list.
And we have Roderick asked, were you considered for the Bulls TV play-by-play when Neil Funk retired?
That is probably a question you probably need to ask people above me. To be candid with you, I probably was not, but I'm very happy on radio, and I love working with Bill Wennington, and I love my job, and I love the Bulls and love coming to work every day. So that's the best answer I can give you. I'm very happy with what I'm doing and where I'm at in my life right now.
And just handle Bulls Radio. You also do the interviews for Bulls TV.
Yeah, COVID kind of created an issue where we really don't do a lot of one-on-ones anymore, just because of the NBA rules and regs. I mean, the Bulls know if they need something, I'm there for them 24/7. But COVID kind of changed the direction, the path of what Bulls TV is now doing, presenting their digital platform.
Who, when you were like doing the one-on-one interviews, do you have like a favorite Bull that you talk to?
Well, I'll say this, Derek. I never have favorites. I loved, I loved them all from the standpoint of, like their generosity of time. They never big time me. If a player had a bad game, I would know when to back off. And if a player was kind of frustrated, or if a player said, you know what, I got to get out of here quickly, can we do it another? I get that. So, again, you have to think big picture here. And if I don't get a 2-minute interview with a player, I'm not going to go beat my head against the wall. But, there were players like Joakim Noah was great. and I mean, that whole group during that period of time with Derek and Lowell and Joakim, I love that group. I mean, that was one of my favorite windows with the Bulls. I just wish Derek had not gotten hurt, because I think the Bulls definitely would have gone to the finals a couple of times, even with Miami with the big three. I think we would have kind of cracked and knocked down that wall for an appearance or two in the finals. We'll never know, of course. But I mean, Jimmy Butler, same thing. Jimmy Butler really, when he first came to Chicago, he was really reserved and quiet. He bought in as a rookie. He got, he kind of he didn't really play a lot as a rook. And then, when we started suffering injuries in year two, especially with Lowell, Jimmy started to play. And I think he played maybe all 82 that year. And he came out of his shell and started being the Jimmy Butler that we come to know and love now, who's on the cusp maybe of being in the Hall of Fame. But to have a one interview, you can have a great interview and it can go 90 seconds. You could have a bad interview and stretch it to 3.5. And then when the camera's off, you're looking in the mirror and saying, why did I do that? Where maybe a 90-second interview, you got, a powerful, impactful soundbite that will, have legs on it for, a day or two with what that individual said. So, I mean, I just appreciate all the players who have spent time giving post-game, pre-game interviews.
Chuck, you talked when you were talking, your eyes light up all the time because you just have this positivity, this vibe about you. But when you were talking about that particular Bulls group with Dang and Rose and Noah, you spoke about them being one of your favorite groups. What was it about that group that you enjoyed so much? Was it the camaraderie, the personality? What was it that you really liked?
You know what, Justin, it was a combination of what you just said. I mean, the skill set of Rose, I mean, at the age of 22, he was the MVP, youngest ever. I mean, so that says something unto itself. Then you have Joakim Noah. And remember, Joe's rookie year was a little bit rocky. And, under Vinny Del Negro, we saw Joe get better. That series in the second season, the 2009 playoff series against Boston, where it went 7 games, and the triple overtime game in game 6, where Noah swiped to the ball, stole it, went down the floor, dunked. Paul Pierce fouled out. The crowd's going crazy. I'm going crazy. And I think that was Joakim Noah's coming out game as an NBA player to be reckoned with. And when Tibbs took over, we saw a different Joakim Noah. I mean, we saw Noah that they facilitated the offense at times through the high post with Noah, especially with Rose gone. But we saw Noah as a defensive player who got after it every possession. And Tibbs would not let Joakim Noah let go of the rope. And it was a beautiful thing for both. And so I just loved, the fact that Luol Deng, every night, 37, 38 minutes, doesn't complain, shows up, gets his 16 points, 8 rebounds, unbelievable defense. It was an amazing group. Heinrich taking charges. We had just the whole group that year was awesome.
Yeah, it really felt like they had a championship level team.
Yeah.
They didn't win the championship, but more importantly, they had a championship level mentality. And just looking towards the team right now, how close do you feel like this team is towards having that same mentality of just we have some talented players on our team, but the mentality aspect, how close are they to reaching that?
Well, yeah, and let's not forget the bench mob, because the bench mob was terrific. They were so terrific that they were working on 1-year deals and they left because they got better contracts, which is good for them, bad for the Bulls, because I love that unit together. But Right now, I would say under the new regime, I love Arturis and I love Mark, and I love just their mentality and their approach to putting a club together. And yet they also know that in front of them are some really good teams. I mean, the East is a monster. And I mean, so there is some work to do. And let me just say this about the 22-23 team, because, hopefully, number one, they're healthy. And I don't have any updates for you. I can only go based on what I hear is exactly what you hear. So it's not like I've got inside information. I don't. But, hopefully Lonzo will be healthy for training camp. Hopefully everyone will be healthy. But let's say the team comes into camp or game one in mid to late October and they're healthy. You can't assume just because they were 37-21 at the All-Star break, or that they got off to a great start and boy, these players together. That was last year. Okay. Teams got better, and you would hope the Bulls got better, some with the additions and some just by the very nature of more experience or just showing up in an NBA uniform and stepping on the floor that you're healthy. But you can't assume anything. You go into the season now. Yesterday is over. And really, I mean, the Bulls made that jump. They made the playoffs, which is great. The crowd got into it. They love this team and they bought in. And now, okay, like, what's next? And so I think for no other reason, that should bring out the best in a player saying, I know what I'm capable of doing. Now let's do it again and even more.
What do you think our biggest areas of opportunities are? Let's take away from the fact of injuries and health. Where do you think our biggest opportunities lie this upcoming season based off of what we saw? I know it'd be hard to gauge since we did come across so many injuries throughout the season, but
well, you know what, Melissa, I think that's a very good question. I think, Melissa, when you look at the components of our team, Lonzo Ball, to me, is certainly one of the key elements of where we're going with this thing, because he was shooting a career high in threes. His ability to hit the open man in transition, his ability to play big guards and to become a defensive stopper was awesome. And then, you had Caruso, and all these pieces added up. And so I would say rim protection is something, and hopefully with the addition of Drummond to rebound and eat minutes when Vooch is out. We talked about Patrick Williams earlier. I think he is a big key to this club, because what you saw Billy Donovan having to do is he had to play small ball at the 4. And Javonte Green plays one way with his heart and his hustle. And at 6'4", he's guarding people like 5 inches taller. And I'm thinking, like, how do you do that? And he does it because he's a very intelligent man and he knows how to play angles. And, he doesn't want that player to get to that spot on the floor, because he knows if that opposing offensive player gets to that spot where he wants to go on the floor, then that means that Javonte probably is going to need some help on a double team on the block or mid post. So I think all these things add up to, okay, we got to get better, but in order to get better, we need to get better. And that's why these guys are in the lab right now working.
Were you pleased with the offseason moves? How would you rate it?
Well, here's how I would rate it. I love Terry. I think Terry's going to be like a terrific addition, because he loves to play defense. And I think when you get a player who really, really wants to play defense, I think that helps, because I just think that your mentality is, I want to come in, I want to be a difference maker right away. And if that means I'm on the defensive side, so be it. He's got an incredible motor. I think Drummond will eat minutes in the post as far as just his ability to rebound and hopefully set some picks, for players. And, Goran Dragic, even at the age of 37, is a very smart, intelligent, crafty player. And so I think the additions will help. And again, with Zach LaVine and with DeRozan and with Vooch, and then you've got, players coming in, hopefully with Lonzo and others, then I think they should be able to obviously have a very, very good year.
You say, Vooch gets a lot of hate, and
yeah.
I think it's uncalled for that. And now people are upset because of talks of Vooch maybe talking with the Bulls about an extension during training camp. Do you think, Vooch will have a better shooting year this season? Because I think that was the main issue that people have was he was hitting his threes.
Right. Well, I think it also, you have to understand, with Vooch on the floor, with the players that were on the floor with him. And do I think Vooch is a better shooter than 30%, 31% from threes? Yes. Do I think that he'll spend more time around the basket? Probably. I don't really get into the contract stuff. That's not my thing. That's for the front office and ownership. So I don't talk about that stuff. But I do love Vooch very much as a player, as a teammate, as somebody who really, really cares about, the whole environment of playing basketball. He's a very smart player. He's a very willing player. He's a very team-oriented guy. And he's a really, really, really good person. So we'll see what develops.
It was kind of strange thinking that are there that many bigs in the league that are coming in that can give you 17 and 10?
Correct.
And that be considered a down year? I just think that there are a lot of elements that Vooch provides to the team, more positive elements than negative, certainly with his intelligence and with his passing and with his communication out there.
Yeah.
So it continues to be somewhat strange looking at the reactions that people are having with him on this team. And I guess considering what the team gave up to bring him on to the Bulls, but yep. I think that he's been a positive addition to this club.
Right. And so I think, well said, Justin. So I think, I mean, people, there's always one guy, two guys that people always lock in and say, that guy. But you know what? Vooch isn't that guy. As you mentioned, it's hard getting 17 and 10 in a season. He's still a very, very good player in this league. I mean, he's a different player than Orlando. I mean, you have to understand, he's got more talent here than he had in Orlando. This is not the Vooch of Orlando. This is the Vooch with Chicago. And I think, having this opportunity now, hopefully with health, we'll see Vooch really, really excel.
Talked about the fan base with how when they're excited and you're excited calling the game. How do you maintain that energy, when the Bulls are down or if they are getting blown out?
Well, number one, I never broadcast to the scoreboard, ever. You have to go in saying to yourself for 4 quarters, maybe more, but for 4 quarters to basketball, whether we have one listener, which could be you, Derek, or Melissa or Justin, but regardless, we have one listener or 3 listeners or 30,000 listeners or 300,000 listeners. I owe it to those listeners as a broadcaster to call the integrity of the game. I mean, if the Bulls are down by 20, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to bury anybody personally. It's never personal ever. So, but if you're down by 20 and the Bulls, make an outrageous play and a slam dunk, I'm not going to go crazy when you're down by 20. But the integrity of the game, the call of the game, all those things are important. So I don't believe in matching what the score says. I think I've got to bring energy. I have to bring a crisp play-by-play, and I have to present to the fans what I'm seeing on the floor. And so that's how I go into each and every game. Do I want the Bulls to win? Absolutely. Am I enthusiastic about our team? Yes. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not. I want the Chicago Bulls to go 82-0. Wishful thinking, no, that's not going to happen. I get it. But you understand where and how I'm presenting this is that I want to see my team win, but I also want to call a game where the listener knows, okay, Chuck, like the Bulls are down by 15. Why? And I'll ask Bill Winnington that question, who does a magnificent job as the analyst. So I get that. If the Bulls are winning by 15, we can have a lot of fun. But when they're down by 15, I kind of pump the brakes and pull it back and understand, where I'm not going to a slow pace, because I do have an obligation to a listener. But it's just that it's a different tone when I didn't say energy, I said tone as far as the broadcast. I never lose energy, ever.
Speaking of how passionate you are and how energetic you are, how do you maintain that throughout the years to just aside from just a single game? You've been doing this for what, over 30 years now? How do you maintain that? How do you keep going and not plateau? Because I mean, it's a lot of people experience fatigue after doing the same thing or similar things for a while.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive that you throughout the years have been able to maintain that.
You know what? Number one, I love what I do. I'm going on my 25th year in the NBA, and I did 18 years of college ball. So whatever that is, 43 years of doing basketball play-by-play. And I approach every year like a canvas. It's completely blank, and the players will paint the canvas. They're the Michelangelo and the Da Vinci of creating a masterpiece. And some seasons we've had really great years. Some seasons with the Raptors, we haven't had good years. But again, that's out of my control. I don't have anything to do with that. I have control of the broadcast. And so my enthusiasm comes from doing this and knowing that as a little boy, I would take a flashlight and under the bed at night and memorize where players went to college, where they played basketball, and I would over and over and over memorize to the point where my mom would quiz me on where players went to college. So I could, most people are doing other things. And here I am reading the NBA Digest and the NFL magazines and Major League Baseball, but that's how I was wired. So
this was really in your blood at a very young age.
Very early age. Yeah.
This is something you always knew you wanted to do.
This is what I wanted to do since I was probably 5 years old.
Wow.
And I wasn't a very good athlete, although, I do think I should have made one team I should have made the junior varsity team in high school, but I got cut. And that actually motivated me. It's not a Michael Jordan story where Jordan got cut in the 7th grade, but so I felt the pain there, MJ, if you're listening. But this is something I wanted to do as a little boy. And now here I am many years later, still doing what I'm doing and still love it. There has been no drop off in my enthusiasm for what I do and who I am.
That's great to hear. And that passion, that zeal, that energy that you have, it definitely comes across in the broadcast. And I know that you said that no matter what the scoreboard is, that's not going to affect whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. But I have to ask, if the Bulls win more games, are we going to see more dancing?
Yes. Well, again, here's what happened with the dancing. So 2 years ago during COVID, we broadcast road games from the basement at the United Center. Our engineer, Rich Wyatt, who by far is the best engineer I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some outstanding engineers. Rich Wyatt took us to the next level with his setup, big screen TVs. I mean, the equipment, it was unbelievable. I prefer to be at the game, obviously on site for road games, but COVID prevented that. So we're doing a game. And as you know, the first year with Arturas and Mark coming in with COVID and everything going on, it was really, really hard. It was very, very difficult. And so our team, we struggled. And there was one game where we won a game, and I was exhaling. My body was like being transformed into like some cloud of spirit, and I just started to dance because I was really fired up and excited. I was, this, and this, and the engineer, Rich Wyatt, taped it, and he goes, "I'm going to put this on social media." And he could have said a zillion things to me. It went in when I didn't even hear it. I honestly, it was like whatever. So he puts it on, and the next thing I know, we're getting like over 100,000 hits, and it went viral. And so now when we win, I do a little dance and finish it off.
So many of us look forward to those dances after
I got to get better, though. I really do have to get better. I got to learn some new moves.
Can you even improve on those dance moves?
I don't know. Yes, I can improve. I must improve. But the players, the players always come to me, and I'll tell you a quick story. I've known Steph Curry for years, and I love the guy. He is a wonderful human being. Forget about basketball. He's just a very outstanding person. So and when we play the Warriors, we always, try and talk before a game, because I remember Steph and Seth when they were just kids playing before the Raptors games, because their father, Dell, played for the Raptors, and Dell would bring his kids to the arena hours before a game, and they'd come on the floor, shoot. And even then you could tell that they had something going. So before our game at the United Center last year with Golden State and the Bulls, we're talking, and we said goodbye, and I'm walking down the hall, and Steph says, "Hey, Chuck, one other thing." And I turned around and I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "You're not dancing tonight." And I said, "Okay, we'll see." And of course, then, the Warriors had their way again with the Bulls, and that was it.
When you do the dance, are you just dancing, or do you like have a song in your head?
I just dance. See, we can't play music because of the licensing. And so because of that, we're prohibited to do that.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I was wondering the same thing. Like, what is playing in Chuck's head?
Yeah, no, I've got a lot of things playing in my head, but we just, I'll tell you, before a game, my rituals, I listen to Elton John. He has a song called "I'm Still Standing," and it really kind of motivates me, and I love, because I'm from Seattle, I love Jimi Hendrix. And, I mean, that guy was like on a different planet, and it's a shame that, things materialized the way with his life, the way it happened, because he was still a young man. I think he was only 26, 27 years old when he passed, but wow. So I listen to his music, Along the Watchtower. I mean, I could go right down the list. And but those are a couple of songs that really get me going. But I'm old school. I love Motown, and it was a big thrill a few years ago at the United Center when I saw Stevie Wonder. And so Stevie Wonder, I'm sitting at the United Center, and he's playing all new stuff. And all of a sudden, like there was a pocket, a section where they started saying like old school, old school, old school. And so he just like started, going, old school Stevie Wonder. And it was fantastic. I mean, what a talent. So I'm from that era where I loved like the OJs and the Four Tops and the Temps and Stevie Wonder. And we could go on and on and on. And, it was that music. Oh, I could listen to that all day.
So what's your like daily routine like on game day? Like do you have a routine? Do you wake up, eat anything specific? Do you listen to any of the music that you just mentioned?
Well, I get up, I work out because it relieves a lot of stress. I do my notes. Like after game 5 against Milwaukee, I started working on 22-23 like immediately,
Wow.
like the next day. So, but I love my prep work. And after that, I go to shoot around. I'm not allowed in shoot around. I can't watch practice, but afterwards I'll go grab a player, talk with the coach, and then head back to the hotel. I'll have lunch, maybe take a nap, an NBA nap to get fresh, and then get on the team bus at about maybe 4:30, 4:45. And after that, call the game. And then depending on what we're doing, get back on the bus, either catch a flight back to Chicago, catch a flight and head to another city. Or if it's a home game, just drive home and replay in your brain, like, okay, did you call that play correctly? Did you miss something? All these things, like, because that's the way I'm wired. I'm very insecure about my own faculties of making sure that I called a good game.
Yeah, well, we had those insecurities after doing the podcast. Do I want to watch this back? Could I do something better? So
yeah,
we
well,
definitely
you know what?
understand.
And you improve with that, no question. But you can't beat yourself up to the point where it takes away the joy of doing this. And Derek, whether it's yourself, Melissa, Justin, you want to have some joy in doing this. This shouldn't be a labor of work. This should be a labor of love, that you're doing something that really is special to you and special to bringing out the best in your guests, which you've done. You've done a terrific job. So thank you for that. But so, I'm my worst critic. I'm very harsh on myself. I'm very hard on myself. And at the same time, I also need to love myself. And by that, I mean, I'm not talking about from an ego standpoint, self-gratification, but I'm talking about the fact that sometimes we get lost in the moment. We don't enjoy the moment. And so like sometimes I'm looking around at when, like I did Kobe's 81 game. And, I mean, I'm watching a man single-handedly put 81 points on the board, second to Wilt Chamberlain's 100. And around the third quarter, when it looked like where this was taking us, during a timeout, I took my headset off. I was doing the Raptors television, and I'm looking around Staples Center, and I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. This is like a moment. And to this day, it resonates, the fact that, hey, enjoy where you're at because it's not going to last forever.
I definitely wanted to ask you just how that energy was during that 81-point game.
Well, the 81-point game, was something, maybe I'll see it again because, if a player gets hot and if a team is still in contention in the fourth quarter, as the Lakers, people don't understand that game. The Raptors were up by like 18, 19 points early in the third quarter. And then Kobe came away with a steal and a slam, and that changed the whole complexion of that contest because the crowd, which was kind of on snooze control in the third quarter. I mean, it was a Sunday night game. There are no A-list celebrities there. And, there was no Jack Nicholson. And, there were no, Arsenio Hall would come to games occasionally when he was in his, prime. But there was no like major movie stars or rock stars. But, during that game, actually, I mean, the story became Kobe Bryant. Once the Lakers started to mount a rally and then took the lead, you have to keep in mind, I'm the Raptor announcer. So it's not like I could just go crazy over Kobe. At the same time, you have to pay the man his due. And when he got 81, he took his last 2 free throws to give him 81 points. Lakers fouled to get him out of the game. I let the crowd tell the story. I didn't need to tell the story. I mean, I just went down under, didn't say a word.
You got to see, speaking of moments, you got to see like Derrick Rose's rookie year and Vince Carter's rookie year.
Yep.
Like, was there anything that you saw in them, their rookie years to tell you or for you to be able to forecast their growth?
You know what, Melissa? When a player comes on the scene and makes a splash the way they did, and knowing their work ethic and how badly they don't want to be good, they want to be great, they want to leave a mark, that speaks volumes about how badly they wanted this in their life and their career. They got better. Now with Derrick, and to a certain degree with Vince, although Vince reinvented himself after a lot of nagging injuries, to play 22 years, whatever it was, 22, 23. So, but with Derrick, immediately from his first game against the Milwaukee Bucks, his rookie year, you could tell from baseline to baseline, he was a blur. And not only a blur, he wasn't just with his ball speed handling from one end of the court to the other. He could finish at the rim, and he was powerful going to the rim. And he had different ways of getting to the basket. And, his body would twist and turn, and the torque, I mean, where his arms would be extended to the right, his legs would be going left in midair. And you're thinking like this, like a scissors, I mean, he's just going like, what's his body? And, like of all things, for him to go to the floor when he crumpled to the court was a skip pass. And I'm not a big fan of skip passes because not a lot of good things happen when you leave your feet and you pass. That's basketball 101.
Yeah.
But, when he went down, there was such a hush. And my heart to this day, because you can only wonder he came back to play and he's had some good years, but, we were really robbed of seeing where this could have gone with that injury. And it's really a shame. But on the other hand, you know what? He's got a beautiful family. He has generational wealth. He's got his health, and he'll be able to nurture and mentor his children. And, Chicago still loves him. So at the end of the day, that's a pretty good life.
Yeah, I remember how I felt when I saw him go down. I'm sure everybody in Chicago or all Bulls fans felt the same way. It was rough, but he's always going to be Chicago's very own.
Correct.
He gets his number retired.
Yes. Well, yeah, we'll see about that. I don't know. No one's worn that number 1.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when Dragic signed, someone put Moses because of the tongue.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people are calling me, did the Bulls really give number 1 to Goran Dragic? I can't believe it. No. That is the internet. Okay, that's photoshopping. Chill. Okay, pump the brakes.
Yeah, I think number one is kind of like unofficially
Yeah.
retired.
Yeah, no one's worn number one since Derek.
It's like one of those unspoken things. You just
Yeah,
don't do that to
probably,
yourself.
probably best left that,
Right.
it's on the shelf.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, we had the Jordan years and the post Jordan years,
Yeah,
and Derrick Rose really brought the Bulls fan base back.
yes,
And we had some rebuilding years recently, but now with Zach and DeMar,
yeah,
things are looking up again,
yeah,
and it's now to where the Bulls have made the playoffs, and the Bulls can now do things for the fans like Bulls Fest at the
yep.
United Center, September 3rd, 4th. Um, Chuck, are you gonna swing by there with the family?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, they mentioned something specifically, Derek. At this point, I'm not sure, but it'll be a great time for the fans. And with 3-on-3 activity and just seeing people come back to the United Center and have a good time. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I think it's a great idea.
I'll be there. Melissa's will be there.
Awesome.
We're looking forward to being at the United Center again.
Great. Well, this has been fun, and I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very
Thank you
much
for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Take care and go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
All right.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Then it's game over. The horn blows.